Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well this Tuesday afternoon. We're going to do an important Rashi from the third Aliyah in Parsha Shmini. We come to the low point of the Parsha in this Aliyah. We're talking about the beauty of the Parsha up till now. We talked about the Shmini Lo Miluyim, the 8th day of the inauguration ceremony of the Mishkan, the day of the transfer of authority from Moshe Rabbeinu to Aaron and his children. A very exciting day, a beautiful day, a day which is really the beginning of the rest of history of the Mishkan and Mikdash and everything that we're continuing to live up until today in our shuls and hopefully one day back in the Beis HaMikdash. It's a very, very important day, but then the day takes, of course, a very deep downturn when Nadav and Avihu die in the midst of their sacrifice. The Torah tells us, "Vayikhu b'nei Aaron, Nadav v'Avihu ishmach tato v'yitnu b'hen eish v'asim alem ketoret v'akrivu lifnei Hashem eish zara asher lo tiva osam." So Nadav and Avihu, two of the sons of Aaron, take their pans and they take fire and they take the ketores, special incense, and they sacrifice it before Hashem with an eish zara, a strange fire that was not commanded to them. Now, using the play on the words eish here, they take eish zara, and therefore midah keneged midah, measure for measure. Hashem sends vateitze eish, a fire comes out midlifnei Hashem, vatochalosam ve'amus lifnei Hashem, and it consumes them, and they die before God. A tragic moment, a terrible moment, horrific moment, nationally and certainly personally for Aaron. When he responds, Vayidom Aaron, he's silent, he's stunned, he's shocked. There are no words to describe the immense loss that he experienced on a personal level and on a national level in this moment, which was supposed to be so beautiful and exciting and holy, ends up being so tragic. The famous question, of course, in this parsha, in this passage, these psukim, is what exactly was the mistake of Nadav and Avihu? Torah doesn't give us much detail, it doesn't explain why they were killed, it doesn't explain why, even if they had done something wrong, they were punished in such a severe way, other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu telling us a couple of small details. What they were doing is using Eish Zara, strange fire, to lo tziva osam, which was not commanded to them. And number two, Hashem's response to the tragedy is Bikrovai ekadesh ve'apnei kol ha'am ekabed. Somehow God had to be sanctified, honored through his holiest ones, but we don't know exactly why or how. And so Chazal and the Mefarshim all take many, many different stabs at trying to explain this. Rashi quotes two of the opinions which are in the Medrash Rabbah, many other opinions here as well, but I'll just read these two because they're the ones that Rashi quotes. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Lo meisu b'nei Aaron eli b'pnei shehoru halacha b'fnei Moshe Rabban. They died because they taught halacha, they paskined halacha in front of their Rebbe Moshe, in front of their teacher. A student is not allowed to paskin in front of their teacher. Gemara goes to great length trying to explain this and describe this, various circumstances in their lifetime, after their lifetime, in front of them, in another city from them. How does it all work? But in the end of the day, Moshe Rabbeinu never commanded them, never told them that this was okay. They paskin for themselves that using this eish, using the fire of the Mizbeach in some way was okay. They paskin that shiloh for themselves in front of their Rebbe Moshe Rabbeinu, and that was their tragic mistake. Rabbi Shmuel Omer Shisuy Yain Nichnasu LaMikdash. It's not that they paskin in front of their Rebbe, in front of their teacher, but they entered for the service of this Eish Zara when they were drunk. They were intoxicated with wine. And it seems that Rabbi Shmuel's opinion here is actually the most fitting in terms of the textual analysis over here, in terms of the pshat, the simple reading of the text. After this whole incident is described and the reaction is described, Torah goes immediately on to telling us another halacha for Aaron and his children. Right? Aaron lemor, yain v'sheichar al teisht, atavanecha itach b'voachem el moed v'lo samusu. Don't drink, don't become intoxicated, you or your children, when you come into the Ol Moed. And if you're able to abide by that rule, lo samusu, you won't die. It seems that this pasuk, according to Rabbi Shmuel, is in direct response to what had happened here about Nadav and Avihu. The juxtaposition of this halacha with the story indicates, because it has all of the elements of the story in it, that perhaps this is what caused them to die. Maybe they were intoxicated, and therefore they came into the Ol Moed and they died there. So now the Torah is telling Aaron, Hashem is telling Aaron, don't do what they did, and if you avoid what they did, meaning Yain v'Sheichar, lo samusu, you won't die as they died. So perhaps that fits most important textually. aside from the textual piece, there's an interesting halachic ramification to Rabbi Yishmael. There's a lot of halachos about being able to daven and do birchas kohanim, but things even outside of the mikdash and the mishkan having to do with various rituals where we're not allowed to involve ourselves in them when we're intoxicated. Many halachos about davening after you drink comes up many times. Even if you're not drunk, if you've drunk a certain amount of wine, then you're not allowed to daven after that for a certain amount of time. So there's a lot of ramifications to what happened over here and the halacha that's being taught over here within Rabbi Yishmael's opinion. In addition, I think it fits into the larger scheme of Jewish history to some degree and world history to some degree. We see from the very beginning of time, Noach gets in trouble in terms of wine. And wine takes on this dual nature. Wine can be beautiful and important and sanctified. Wine can lead us astray. And there's a very fine line between them. We're going to see in subsequent parshios descriptions of the Moadim and the various sacrifices of the day that wine libations are critically important in the Mikdash and the Mishkan. Using wine is not something that we avoid, it's something that we actually do. We do quite often. We sanctify it, not only outside in terms of Kiddush and all of those other things, but in terms of the service, the avoda in the Mishkan itself, wine is critically important. But wine can be used for other purposes as well, which are not as positive and not as sanctified, and perhaps that was going on here. A continuous reminder all the way back to the time of Noah that when he plants a vineyard after the flood, it's not necessarily a bad thing. What was bad about it, as we saw in the Rashi way back in Parshas Noach, is Vayachal Noach, that he made it chulin. He used the vineyard not for sanctified purposes, but for debased purposes, becoming drunk, avoiding the world, and eventually coming to the terrible sins that he was involved with because of that. So too, perhaps history repeats itself over here in some similar way, although not identical, with Nadav and Avihu, who used wine for improper purposes, according to Rabbi Yishmael. And then the warning comes not to avoid wine altogether, but to avoid wine in a certain context so that the line remains clear between what's permitted and what's prohibited. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you, Rabbi, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for studying.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Rabbi.